Hey guys, it is your girl Shatanya Ami, and I'm here today speaking with an amazing person who's on our same journey of spirituality and just being present and then just enjoying and creating a beautiful life. His name is Matt Wolf, and he's here to speak with us today about his life and his journey, his spiritual journey, and his journey as a screenwriter. So, Matt, introduce yourself to my listeners.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on the program. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Matt Wolf, and I am a professional screenwriter. Also have many years of public relations and marketing experience as well.
Okay. And I did read that you have done PR for so many years. In what area did you do PR? Was it in entertainment, fashion?
Yeah, I did do entertainment PR for a while, representing a few musicians as well as directors and films. I also worked with many different brands, everything from Mattel to Sony PlayStation, Tom Shoes. So have a diverse experience in the public relations field.
Wow, that's amazing. That is amazing. No, I dabbled in PR a little during my fashion career, so I know that's very high stress. Like that's a lot
It's
going
a tough
on.
industry. Yeah, it can be tough.
Yeah. But definitely an amazing feel. Like it does amazing work for people that's trying to get out there and stuff like that. But that's not what we're here to talk about.
We can go a whole hour just about.
I know, just about PR. PR alone would be like an hour show.
Yeah.
So, Matt, just to get to know you a little bit more, can you tell me about your childhood and where you grew up?
Sure. I'm a Los Angeles native. I grew up in the San Fernando Valley, which is an area within Los Angeles County. Love it here, really. Love the weather. Love the diversity of the people. And then I went to college in Tucson, Arizona, and then after college returned home, and I've been here ever since.
Wow. Okay. That's funny. That's where I want to move to. That is my dream, to move to California. I'm like so over the cold weather here and the snow. I'm done.
I hear you. It's definitely different. It's like in the high 80s today.
Oh, God, that's so beautiful.
Incredible.
I would love to be in that right now. I'm like dodging rain, wondering, can I go to Walmart today? Like,
it's different. Definitely a different way of life.
Exactly. So I definitely would love to get myself on over to California. So what was your childhood like? Did you grow up in a spiritual household, or how was that growing up?
Sure. To be honest, not really. It was more, I guess, a religious household, and not very religious, but I am Jewish, and so I grew up, in that culture, which was great. I love everything, about it. My parents, are amazing people. I have a sister who's 3 years younger than I am. So, look, I had a relatively privileged childhood. I'm very grateful and thankful for it. It's, obviously, one's childhood does, shape each individual in some capacity. And so, just very grateful for that experience.
Right. That's the reason why I always ask my people that I interview about their childhood, because I know it's like it's the foundation of us, and especially when most people get on a spiritual journey or like just a self-help journey, it usually helps to understand and like other people can relate. So that's the reason why I always ask about the childhood, because sometimes like you may hear something from the person like, wow, I resonate with that. So, and I get it. And I'm on that same journey too. So that's the reason why I always kind of like try to dig into the childhood.
No, it's a great question.
Yeah. But could you share with us when you discovered that you had a love for screenwriting?
Yeah, so, it kind of came about pretty randomly. I've always been a fan of, film and television, and, I always enjoyed creative writing growing up. Never knew what I really wanted to be. I mean, I was obsessed with baseball. I played baseball my whole childhood, so I love sports, and so I thought about maybe becoming a sports writer or sports broadcaster. I had an internship as a sports writer, and that was great. But then when I went to college, I ended up majoring in journalism, and what I discovered is that while I enjoyed certain aspects of it, there wasn't a lot of creative freedom to kind of go off and tell my own, stories. I guess in a more fictional way. You can't really be, a fiction writer when you're covering, hard news. And so, while in college and then shortly after college, I kind of just started reading a bunch of screenplays and, reading books about screenwriting. So it kind of helped me, get started. And then, I just kind of went for it. I just kind of decided that I was going to, begin writing and see where that took me.
Okay. So I have a question, and this is just like for me and maybe other people that's listening. So when it comes to screenwriting and so is screenwriting the same as like you writing a script for a movie or writing a script for a play, or is it their difference?
So screenwriting specifically, you're essentially writing for the screen.
Okay.
So yes, film, television. Sometimes they refer to a television script as a teleplay. Writing an actual play is similar, yet also different. Just the formatting of the document that you're writing. A play is much more dialogue. It's less visual, but when you're screenwriting, it's interesting because not only does the dialogue and the character development need to be there, but you need to almost write visually so that people can, because ultimately what's going to get produced is what's on the screen. And so, it's a very specific type of writing in that most screenplays for film anyway are 90 to 120 pages. So you need to tell the best story that you can within kind of that time frame. And usually how it comes about is it's about one page per minute, and that's why it's 90 to 120 pages. But yeah, there's a certain format that's kind of industry standard. And that's I guess a long answer to your question.
No, that was a perfect answer to my question, because I never understood the difference of like screenplays and then when you said teleplays and I never understood the difference. I just thought it was the same, but I do know from doing costume design for films that I had to, it makes sense when you said that it has to be visually there in words, because that's how I used to break down the scripts too. When I used to read them and break it down and come up with the wardrobe, I can visualize it. So that totally makes sense. So thank you for clearing that up for me, because I was a little confused. No problem. So could you describe to us like your experience in breaking into the entertainment industry and as a new writer, and what steps you took to, I guess, basically get out there and be seen? And did you go to school? No, I think I saw you self-taught, right?
Yes. Okay. Yes, I never went to film school. Okay. Kind of just self-taught and went for it. In terms of, breaking in, I think that, it's an interesting term because you can be a writer, anywhere essentially, and be creating and, not necessarily, quote unquote, be in the industry, but yet you are, because you're writing film, you're trying to, start a career. In terms of like my first break, I think that it came when I was hired by a production company to write a thriller for them. Anytime that you can get paid money to write is a huge achievement. A lot of screenwriters, including myself, starting out, you pretty much have to write what they call it on spec, so on speculation, that someone will purchase it or option it. And so a lot of writers, when they're first starting out in their career, they're writing for free because they have to prove to people in the industry that they have the ability and that they're willing to put in the work before someone just decides to give them a bunch of money to write something else, if that makes sense.
No, I totally understand that. That's kind of like how it is with as styling, as being a stylist. I had to do a lot of, free jobs to get, for people to respect me enough to be like, okay, I'll pay you to dress me because you're just not going to throw me in anything. So no, I totally, I totally
That's funny.
get it.
Yeah, and to your second part of that question, in terms of what steps did I take, being in Los Angeles does help, because that's where a lot of the action is. I wouldn't say that you have to be, in Los Angeles, but especially if you're not, I think networking is a huge component of getting people's attention, because ultimately you're asking, most often you're asking people who don't know you to take time out of their life and their daily work to read your material. Right. And so what I've done is, where I think PR, marketing, a little bit of sales background helped me is, I would, do my best to form relationships with people that I know, whether it's friends of friends, or just people I came across, over the years, with my day job. And then I also spend time reaching out to people cold, that I don't know, and introducing myself with, a brief paragraph or two about, my work. And, a lot of people don't respond, but there are people who do. And I've formed great relationships with people who are willing to learn more about my work. So I think, one of the hardest things about being a writer is, in addition to it being, a creative endeavor, you really need to begin to learn and understand the business side of things, because it is a business. And so I think if you're able and willing to just put yourself out there and basically be open to getting a lot of rejection, a lot of criticism, a lot of feedback, I think then you have a shot, being a professional writer, and more specifically screenwriter.
Right. I definitely agree with that, especially with the building of relationships and networking and being able to take the no's and and being able to do quiz, because a lot of times you will get no's, but there will be the yeses too. And I think sometimes the no's is what discourage people from pushing forward and keep putting yourself out there, because you become very vulnerable to a no. I know for myself, it was hard for me to put myself out there, because rejection, I realized, was an issue with me, was one of my triggers that would send me spiraling down or hold me back, because I'm like, okay, someone said no. And then my sister used to always say, well, what can they say? The most they can say is no. And I'm like, that's what I don't want to hear. So it's like,
look, I hear you 100%. Yeah. And, in a lot of industries, not just the entertainment industry, people hear no's a lot, especially if you're in sales. And so I think all you can do, from what I've learned, and it's not easy to get to that point, but to just realize that all you can do is your best, and put yourself out there. The majority of people are probably not going to want what you have to offer, at least initially, especially if you're someone who is kind of unknown and doesn't have a proven track record. But you just have to find a way to deal with it and try not to internalize it, which is, again, tough.
Right. So that leads me to the next question. Well, I guess it's kind of like they kind of go hand in hand. Like, I wanted to know, when did you start your spiritual journey, and then the ups and downs and the finicky entertainment industry. Was that something that took a toll on you mentally and that led you to your spiritual journey, or did something else occur that made you just get on a different path?
Great question. So, in terms of my spiritual journey, about 17 years ago, when I was 21, my dad passed away, unfortunately, of cancer. And I never really had that sort of traumatic, life event occur. And it, obviously changed my perspective on life, both consciously and subconsciously, in terms of that life can be very short. You can be a healthy individual like my dad, and then, one day at the age of 55, just get a diagnosis that kind of comes out of nowhere. And so that in and of itself kind of, really taught me that life can be unfair, and that, our time here very well may be limited. So that was just kind of the first life event that kind of got me thinking. But it wasn't really until about, I would say, 3 or 4 years ago that I began to get into ancient Eastern philosophy and read other, literature from the United States, that just, kind of helps you, I guess I would say, expand your mind and begin to think about yourself and the people around you and ultimately the world kind of from a different, vantage point. And so between reading a lot of literature, listening to certain podcasts, and just kind of going inward, even if you don't do that, I think some of the hardest things for people to do is to take a very close look at themselves, and their life, and kind of, think about how they can, be better, not only to themselves, but to others. So again, kind of a long answer to your question, but, primarily 3 to 4 years ago, but my father's death obviously had a large impact on my life.
Right. No, I totally understand that. And what podcast did you listen to and what books did you read? Like who was there anyone in particular that really stuck out to you? Like I know with me was Abraham Hicks. That was like and Dr. Wayne Dyer. They were really, I would say, virtual mentors for me that really kept me going. So, which books did you love reading and which podcasts did you listen to?
So, in terms of books, Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle was one. Subtle Art of Not Giving an F by Mark Manson is one. Blink by Malcolm Gladwell. And then in terms of podcasts, I mean, I'm pretty much a disciple of Ram Dass. I don't know if you know who he is, but he's a spiritual mentor, I guess, who he actually passed away about a year or two ago in his 80s. But he's someone who used to be a Harvard professor who then went to India, I think it was in the 60s, and that kind of transformed his life, and he then spent the rest of his life, sharing what he learned, in the Far East, and kind of how to apply it to, life in the U.S. And he's just someone that I admire because, I think he's transparent, he's authentic, he doesn't force things on other people, he just shares what works for him and what he thinks can work for others, and really changed my life. I mean, that's really the only way to describe it. It's very profound. Profound speaker.
I love that. So I have to look him up. Definitely have to look up. It's so funny because it's like I started listening to Wayne Dyer and he really started changing my perspective. And it's also funny that I just posted the Power of Now on my Instagram and saying to people, you need to read this book. This is my gift to you today, The Power of Now. So it's so funny that you mentioned that. But yeah, like with Wayne Dyer, it was the same thing. Like he helped me change my perspective on how I saw things because that was the main thing that was triggering my depression and everything, and just not looking at things from the proper perspective. Oh, I can't say the proper perspective, but giving it a new perspective of how to look at things. So so that was definitely a great teaching for me. Now, did you incorporate meditation into your practice, or like what did your journey look like? What was your tools that you used?
Sure. So I've never been a huge meditator in the traditional sense where I sit down and close my eyes, and but there's other forms of meditation and methods. So certain breathing exercises. Making time to be by myself and to find kind of peace and quiet, whether that's in the home or out of the home in nature. But also, I'm a big reflector. I think as a writer, ultimately, I'm a big, I'm more of a listener and observer than a talker. Which so doing this interview, is a little bit different for me. But I like to observe, and I think that at least when I quiet down, and I feel like when other people quiet down, it allows them to really see things for how they are, versus what they would like it to be or what they hope it would be. And so breathing exercises I think are huge. And then again, just trying to find time for yourself. And I know that for some people that might be hard, because some people like to be with others so much, and when they're with themselves, it's, that's the only way you can, I think, figure out your inner truth, is when you're just by yourself, and there's no one but you and your thoughts.
Right. No, that's definitely the truth. Being by yourself, and it can be challenging for people, but that is the peace that you need to find, that silence and that self-care. And that's true what you said in reference to like your meditation journey doesn't have to look like just a sitting down, sitting in a yoga pose with your eyes closed. It's just taking time for yourself and finding that quiet time. So I totally understand that. And it's been rewarding to me. I'm actually in school now for mindfulness meditation. And so it's a lot of sitting by yourself. And we don't realize how anxious we are to not sit by ourselves until it's time to sit by ourselves. I'm like, oh my God, I got to sit here for 45 minutes and just not say anything.
Well, not only that, you notice that, when you sit down to meditate right away, it's not like you automatically just stop having thoughts.
Right.
If anything, the thoughts still run wild, but through time and continued practice, and certain breathing exercises, you're able to extricate yourself from the thoughts, and that's a huge proponent. I mean, that's a whole other topic, but basically understanding that who we are as individuals is not necessarily our thoughts.
Exactly.
We're much more than our thoughts.
Right. Exactly. So, okay. Now this one deserves a big congratulations. You became a new father during during the pandemic of all times.
Yeah, almost a year ago. It's been an amazing experience. I'm very lucky. I think having a child, while it can be stressful, and maybe at certain times it was, it's really a blessing, and it just kind of opens your eyes up, further, to kind of what's in front of you, and maybe what one's purpose is. And so for me, it's been amazing. I've enjoyed every moment of it, and being able to be home for most of it, again, I think has been a blessing.
Right. That's so true, because it's like most of the times in a normal situation, you probably wouldn't have been able to spend as much time with the new baby because you probably would have been working and out running around. But this time you really got to be able to be there, like, because you had no other choice. Like, so you got to be there. So,
absolutely. And what I've learned is that I'm just one of those parents and dads that want to be there as much as I can, because I do believe that things happen pretty quickly, and before you know it, maybe they're 3, 5, 10, 15 years old, and then they're God willing out of the house. And so I think that you just want to make the most of every moment. But sure, like anything else, it has its challenges, but they're not that great in my opinion, at least so far. I'm sure I'll have a lot to deal with moving forward, but that's why it's good to have spiritual practices.
Exactly. I love that. And do you feel that you found your true purpose in for this lifetime, or do you think it's still evolving?
In terms of myself?
Yeah. No, well, not the child. Yeah, and true.
Yeah, I think we're always evolving. Maybe until the day where we're physically not here. Because what I've come to believe is that, as Ram Dass would say, like everything's grist for the mill. So everything that happens to you in your life essentially is an opportunity to learn more about yourself based upon how you react or respond or think about something. And so while I finally have gotten to a place where I feel really good about who I am, I also know that the journey is far from complete, because anything can be thrown at you at any given moment, really.
No, that's absolutely right. And what does the next chapter of your life look like? Will it be more of like inspirational work or more screenwriting? Like, what do you see for the next chapter?
Well, to be honest, I have no idea. I really try to be in the moment, as present as I can be. While everyone, I think, has thoughts about the past and the future, I try not to get too lost into it. You know what I mean? I try to just focus on what's in front of me and how I can continue to better myself. So, seeing as how I do want to, help others in various ways, who knows, maybe, philanthropic work could be, in the future. I don't plan on stopping telling stories through writing, whether it leads to a long, successful career or whether I'm someone who just, writes and, for fun. I plan on doing that. And I don't know, maybe I'll have another kid. I really don't know exactly. And that's part of the excitement for me, at least. I know that, not knowing for a lot of people causes a lot of stress and anxiety, but I've gotten to a point where I kind of like not knowing.
Right. No, and that's okay, because I totally agree with you. Like, because we don't know, and I know sometimes when people ask me, I'm like, well, whatever the universe has in store for me. Like, I know there's certain things that I can kind of see myself doing, but I'm like, we never know how the universe is going to unfold our next steps.
This is true.
Yeah. So no, I completely agree with you. And it's okay, because I've had friends who say they don't know what they're going to do, with their career, and they're stressed out about it. I'm like, it's okay to not know. It's like, it's fine. Like, because especially when I don't like when people stress their children out about trying to figure out what it is that they want to be when they grow up, because the vision that I had for myself as a child has changed 50 million times. Like, I wanted to be a zoologist when I was in kindergarten. I wanted to be an archaeologist. Then I wanted to be a lawyer. Then I wanted to be like all these things that I wanted to be. And then even in my adult life, I wanted to be a stylist, and then I wanted to be a designer. And then I turned out, now I'm doing a podcast. So it's like there's so many different unfoldings, then it's okay to not know. So I totally agree with what you're saying.
Absolutely.
With that. Yeah. Before I get you off the phone, I do want to ask you, what inspired you to do thrillers and horror?
Another great question. I actually grew up being a huge comedy fan, so I was obsessed with Jim Carrey, all of his movies. I was obsessed with a lot of kind of the turn of the century comedies that came out, and so I actually started as a comedy writer. But then as kind of my career progressed, and I actually met my wife, who's a big fan of thriller and horrors, I began to watch more of them, and not only are they thrilling and exciting, but you can still weave in, certain themes that are important to you and maybe others, and you can still inject comedy into these, stories, even in kind of some of the darkest moments, because I think we all know that even in some dark moments, there can be light. And so whether it's a certain line or a joke or a character doing something that is maybe unique and kind of out there that causes a smile or a laugh, I somehow just kind of gravitated more towards the dark side, is what I like to say. Look, comedy writing is very tough. If you're a straight comedy writer, you really need to be funny as often as possible. And these days, you kind of need to have I would argue for the most part, you need to have like a social media presence where you're more of a personality. And so it's a little bit of a different kind of endeavor as opposed to, writing stuff that may be a little darker.
That's true. I totally agree with that. No, I totally agree with that. With the it's funny that you mentioned, like, okay, as a comedian, you would be on a like social media presence, because I would not see what is it, Stephen King on Instagram. I couldn't see him doing TikTok.
He's actually a pretty funny guy in a dark way. Yeah, I think he has like a Twitter account. I don't know if he has Instagram, but I think a lot of people in the entertainment industry specifically, they want to see that you have a built-in following. I think it makes it easier to kind of pitch you to others. But look, I mean, a lot of people are on social media. There's other people like myself that I'm not, on it a lot. I don't really have a significant presence, but that's just me. I think that it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. If you're a comedy writer and you happen not to love social media, you can still be a great writer and get your information about yourself out there.
Right. And I don't feel that the like social media and followers determine your talent, because people were talented and successful way before social media came along. So like I'm one of those people, like I post, but I don't post that often because that's a whole nother job. And then that's stressful if you're dealing with people like me that's dealing with anxiety and stuff like that. You don't need to be on social media 24/7. Looking at posts, because then you go down that rabbit hole. So sometimes it's just not the greatest. I mean, but if you follow good people, like inspirational people, like I follow like the Eckhart Tolles and stuff like that. So there is a healthy way to be on social media, but I totally agree. Like you don't have to really be up there like that. So it's not a problem because I really feel like it's gotten lost where the your talent is represented by your followers, and I don't think that that's the truth. Because I've seen some people who have amazing followers, and they're not that great at what they're doing. So, like, okay,
Yeah, I mean, look, people have followers for various reasons. I think talent can be subjective. I think there's certain individuals, and or entertainment. Whether it's bands or we can all agree that some are more talented than others, but it can be very subjective too. Someone who you think is talented, I may not, and vice versa.
That is true.
I think in terms of followers, I would say that if someone has a lot of followers, those people at least want to hear what that person has to say. Mm-hmm. And then separate from that, I guess some are talented and some may not be. It's pretty subjective.
That's true. That's true. So, but thank you so much, Matt, for talking to us today and sharing your journey and sharing your life with us. And can't wait to see more from you. And congratulations on the baby. And enjoy this warm weather that I'm so jealous of in California. Go take a stroll on the beach for me until I get out there.
I will do that soon, I promise. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me on your program. It's been great talking with you. I think what you're doing is great.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And I truly appreciate you as well. Bye, guys.